What is safety? When is flying an aircraft considered safe? How do we define safety? And how do we quantify it? What is a proper measure of quantifying safety? Statistics could help, but you should understand that statistics don't solve it all. Let's take the different definitions one can give for safety. Depending on whether we express safety as the number of fatalities per journey, per hour, per kilometer, the ranking changes. Aviation is often considered the most safe mode of transportation, which could be illustrated with defining safety in number of fatalities per kilometer. But change the definition and it seems no longer true. Evidently, this means that safety depends on how it's presented. It depends on the definition. However, there's more to that. Take the psychological aspect contributing to how the public perceives safety in aviation. The fact that multiple car accidents occur in a week doesn't show up on the 8 o'clock news, while a single aircraft accident will be all over the news, often for many days, and people remember that for quite some time. Another aspect is that statistics make no distinction on the airliner, the aircraft type and its age, or the route on which the aircraft is operated. It really makes a difference whether the accident occurs on a route from Amsterdam to Paris, or to Frankfurt, or to Heathrow, or whether it's a domestic flight in, say, Sudan or Afghanistan. Effectively, each aircraft type, including the new Boeing 787 and the Airbus A350, have to build their own track record of safety. You can't apply statistics to an aircraft just entering into service. But let's zoom in somewhat further, because not all aircraft accidents relate to structural failures. Structural safety relates to failure of a component or structure resulting in the accident. Here you have two examples of aircraft accidents near Amsterdam Schiphol. The left-hand side shows the accident site of the El Al accident in 1992, where a Boeing 747 crashed into an urban area. This accident was caused by fatigue failure of a component that initiated a sequence of failures leading to the accident. The more recent Turkish Airlines accident, however, did not relate to structural failure, but could be related to human factors. In general, about 70% of the accidents seem to relate to human factors rather than structural failure. Now, who is responsible for assuring structural safety? We can identify at least 3 different parties that are involved here. The first are the airworthiness authorities, like AEASA in Europe or the FAA in the US. They regulate and prescribe what should be done in order to assure structural safety, and they monitor that. The other party involves aircraft manufacturers who develop, design and build aircraft, and in doing so demonstrate to the authorities that they comply with the regulations. Part of that compliance involves the prescription of how the aircraft should be operated and maintained. Hence, the third party comprises airlines and operators who comply with regulations and follow the requirements from the manufacturers on how to maintain the airframe. The structural requirements involve various aspects, among which strength and loads. Strength represents the structural resistance to failure, which can be established fairly accurate through analysis and tests. Loads and load cases must be estimated. Although certain events are known, like takeoff, maneuvers and landings, the corresponding loads are not always the same. One may have a smooth landing one day or a rough landing the other day. Hence, they must be estimated based on how often certain events are expected to occur and on how severe the event will be. Let's take the analogy with your car. For cars in traffic, many events can be expected to happen. One may turn left and right at various speeds with associated loads, or one may run into another car or into a tree. Each of these events has a certain likelihood of occurring, and for each event one has to determine up to what extent it is deemed acceptable. Running a car into a tree with a speed of 100 km an hour may have an extremely low likelihood of occurring, but if it occurs, survivability is low. Nonetheless, we all step into our cars and participate in traffic because we accept the risk. This also applies to the acceptance of risks in aeronautics. We identify events and associated loads and forces. Because it's impossible to design aircraft that survive every event, we determine which events should be accounted for in design and estimate which event should form an acceptable risk. The third aspect in structural requirements relate to lifetime. Components and structures should last a minimum required of time. This time can be expressed in different units depending on the structure or element. In many cases, flights forms the proper unit of lifetime, whereas in other cases, flight hours is deemed more appropriate. Each component has its own unit of lifetime. Take for example the fuselage that is pressurized every flight. Such pressurization cycle requires flights as unit of lifetime. Engine components like turbine blades, however, require flight hours as unit of time, because these components rotate continuously throughout the entire operation of the aircraft. This means that for operating aircraft, both flights and flight hours are recorded to measure the lifetime of the entire airframe.